Hey guys, welcome to the first tutorial in my Java Basics tutorial series. Today I'll be explaining the Hello World program we wrote in the last video and going over the very basics of what a class is in Java. So to get started, I'm going to talk about what is a class, because as you know from the last video, we created this class called Hello World, but what actually is it? So a class in Java is like a container for variables and functions. And so imagine it like a box where you can store lots and lots of things. And you can create copies of that box to use in different situations. Or you can have one box which you just use for every single time you want something out of it, you go to that specific box. So I've drawn up a little diagram in Paint. I know it's not very good, um, but hopefully it should get my point across. So everything in Java is an object, which, like I said before, is essentially a box, and a class is the most used and simplest type of those boxes, because they just store functions as well as variables, and you can copy them or access the original. So they're very easy to use, and you must have a class to put any runnable code in that will execute, just like you must have this main function in one of those classes to get it to execute. So hopefully that should have cleared up what class is. Just picture it as a box containing lots of different data. So now that we've cleared up classes, I just want to go over briefly what this method declaration actually means. So in Java, if you ever see something surrounded by curly brackets, that means it's inside of something else. So say after our class declaration, we have curly brackets, and that's showing everything inside of these brackets is a part of that class. So everything inside of these curly brackets is a part of this function. And you may be wondering, well, what do these three things mean in front of the function? What does that actually tell the program? So public, which is the first one here, simply tells the program that this can be accessed from other classes or files. So the three types of sort of privacy you can have on anything in Java, that it's either public, protected, or private. Public, like I just said, can be accessed from anything. Private can only be accessed from that class, and protected is a bit more complicated because it can only be accessed by that class or children classes, which I won't go over today, but I will at some point, and then that will make a lot more sense. So just don't worry about things being protected for the moment. The next thing is static, and what this tells it is that this method is not to be used in copies of the box, but it is to be used in the original box. So always, whenever you try and access this method, you want the original one. So this method will not change its output based on which box you're looking in. It will always be the same. Void simply means that this method does not return anything, because in Java you always have to specify what type of variable or object you are returning from that method. And void just simply means this method does not return anything. It doesn't give a value back to the program. The next thing is the method name, and obviously for our main method, that's going to be main, since this is what the compiler expects it to be. This is where it will access your code. And the brackets following that of the arguments list. So these are the things that will be passed into the function as parameters. And for the main method, we have a string array called args or arguments or whatever you want to call it. And essentially what a string array is it's a list of words or sentences. And these are the things that will be passed in from the command line. So say like if you did, so say after running your program they specified hello and world, the indexes into this string array would be hello and world. So we don't need to worry about them at the moment, but that's what they are. And finally, this line here is an access to the function print line to print out a string. And what you got, so basically the system, that is a built-in class in Java. You don't need to import it. And that is the reason it's just wrote like system, and you don't need to create a new copy of system, is because out, which is what we want to get, is static inside of system. So it's in the original copy of that box. So system.out, so out is an object inside of system, it's a variable, and then println, which means that println is a function inside of out. And what this does is it takes in a string or any other object really, and it will simply print it out to the console. So like I just mentioned, this commonly takes in a string, which is what these double quotes mean. And anything inside of those double quotes is a string, which is just, like I say, any message essentially. And then we have a closing bracket to show that this is the end of the parameters list. So this function is complete. And then we have a semicolon. And the purpose of the semicolon in Java is to tell the program that this statement has finished. This is a complete statement, and that the next thing I type is going to be the next statement for you to execute. So say if we were to do system.out.println from John, that semicolon would tell it first print out hello world, then print out from John. As you can see, that all compiles and runs. And you can declare as many methods as you want inside of a class. So say I could come down here and do public void or public static void, and then say my method and just system.out.println. And actually, let's add in a string called message. So then we can print line message. And whatever gets passed into my method will then be printed out onto the screen. So it's simple, very easy to call this method because it's inside of the same class. We don't have to do say hello world dot my method. We could do that, but we don't have to. So instead we can just simply type my method and then put whatever we want here. So say like hi. And once we run this, it will print out hi. So that is very simple, very easy, and I hope that this tutorial has helped to clear up what a class is. In the next one, I'll be going more in depth into defining variables in Java and using different variable types and data types inside of your code. But for now, this has been John. I'll be seeing you later. Goodbye.